So, who is this? So let me get the topic first. Topic: if suffering is optional, could happiness be a choice? That's pretty cool. And I thought when I wanted to have this conversation, you know, the opportunity to choose joy and happiness, there was no one else I knew I could sit down and have this conversation. So the beautiful woman beside me, she is a speaker, she is a coach, she is a facilitator. She's an international best-selling author. She is a happiness and resiliency coach, a happiness and resiliency coach. Do you guys get that? And she is the founder of Lift the Lid, Life Uncapped. I love that. And I gotta tell you, what I love about this woman is every time I see her at an event, she shows up with her beautiful family, her boys, her husband, and you can feel the love, you can feel the attentiveness, you can feel the joy. And she flips around and does her things, but they do it as a unit in family. And it's always just been something that I'm like, that's the way to do it. She does it right. So please help me welcome Hailey Patry. Hey, beautiful.
Hello, Miss Beautiful Super Lady. It is such an honor to be with you on your show. And there's a little surprise I never told you. Your name is written in the back of my book. You are acknowledged alongside Oprah and some of the other greats of the greats as one of my favorite people. So I'm so excited to be here with you.
Oh, that is so cool. Thank you. Okay, so you just made my day. I feel like, ah. So, you know, I don't even know where to start with this topic. This topic to me is so juicy because it has so many facets and so many faces. But before we do that, I want to give you an opportunity to just let my audience know who you are and what is a happiness and resiliency coach?
Thank you so much, Suzanne. Well, hello, friends. If you're a friend of Suzanne's, I love her, then I love you too. I became a happiness coach by experiencing a large buffet of a variety of forms of unhappiness. In my childhood, I overcame abuse, 8 years of depression, anorexia, 2 childhood suicide attempts, and a violent attack that led to cervical cancer and multiple reconstructive surgeries. And when I learned how to get out of the dark on my own, and I learned how to do it without a flashlight and without help, I created methods that could get people out of their dark faster. And so it just became my life mission to help people who are in struggle. And whether that struggle is to go from 0 to 3 or from 9 to 10, it's the thing I love most to do. And whether the pain is with personal happiness, relationships, or even business, a happiness coach knows a lot about unhappiness. And it's not, someone once asked me, Suzanne, are you a laughing coach? Like, do you make people do belly laughter? And to me, it's not that. Happiness is having you be able to put your head on the pillow at night, knowing you are the right person to do this thing called your life, and that everything's going to be okay because you can steer it.
You are the right person to do this thing called your life. And I love this because, you know, when I think of happiness and joy, I think of this internal state that I work on maintaining and managing no matter what's going on outside.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, that's a I don't want to say a skill, but it is a way of being that one must practice.
And it is a choice, not in the cliche way to just go, oh, I'm happy. No, it's a choice when adversity hits to decide at that moment, is this thing here to break me or make me? Is this COVID-19 thing here to break us or to make us? And when we make the decision that something's here to break us and we resist, it shouldn't be happening to me, I don't deserve it, well, on comes the thick layer of suffering. When we make that baby early decision to say, no, I know it's going to suck for a while, but I trust this is here to make me and to make us, and we just lean in and look for the good, that's where happiness is a choice. It's to begin to seek out surviving it, thriving it, and then loving the new normal after.
I love it. So let's talk about that first kind of shift. And for me, I know it's almost like you're putting on a different view of the world, right? So here we are, and there's a lot going on. People, you listen to the media, there's doom, gloom, things we don't expect. There's deaths happening. Like it's at a magnitude that is it's heartbreaking and it's mind-boggling. So the first step you're saying is to choose how you interact with that. If I'm
like
hearing.
deciding at the beginning how we graduate at the end. So if I looked at my past trauma, let's look at ending of a first marriage. If I looked at that as this is in my life to break me, I'll never trust men again, I'll never love again, all marriages end in disaster, that would have been my true story I told myself and came true. But if I said this is happening to me so I can raise my bar, change my story about love, learn new skill sets for love, and love after this will be better, well, then that's the true story. So with COVID-19, there's a real division in the world right now. There are those who believe this shouldn't be happening, and the suffering is in, and there's major resistance. But for those of us that say, this is here to make us kinder to each other, kinder to the planet, kinder around our spending habits, more conscious about what we honor, who we honor, how we honor them, kinder to ourselves, just slowing the pace of automatic, then there is less suffering because we don't live in a different world, but we see the beautiful parts that are going on in the chaos, and the other folks, they don't get to see those beautiful parts. They're not tuned in for it.
And that's such a great word. It's tuning in, right? So for me, I always think of this thing, it's like a tuning fork. And even when I write my goals or I write something down, it's almost like I tune my mind to a station that dials in on those things. So what I'm hearing you say, first of all, you said something really so powerful. Choose, decide from now how this is going to end, how the story is going to end. And I believe we are story writing, story making machines. We write them all the time. So if we're going to write a story, why not write one with an ending that we'd like to have, is what you're really saying.
And the news makes it really challenging because the news tells a story of, well, it might have to go on till 2022 and the effect on the economy and all of that. But the other story is so many companies that used to distrust their want to work from home employees are going to be so excited that they can continue to serve the world and have their employees work from home and not pay rent. And parents who were on autopilot and missing out on time with their kid, there's going to be so many beautiful things that are different. I like to tell a story that has the truth, which means honoring the parts that will be different in a hard way, but celebrating the parts that will be different in a good way.
Oh, and that's such, you're giving us such great distinctions because it's honoring the truth, because there's some things that are, I call it the data. There's some things that are just the data, right? We've got to embrace the data. However, I can take the data and look at it and go, well, from this data, we're definitely going down this path. And someone else can take the data and go, from this data, we're going down this path. And you're saying, I get to choose what I do with the data, but I've got to acknowledge and I think the thing is that I've got to acknowledge and accept the data, then say, how am I going to, what's this meant for? I like to say, if everything is perfect, why would this be here? For me to learn, for me to grow, for me to expand, for me to become more.
And that's one of my favorite concepts. And I mean, I apply that concept to some of the most serious and most heinous things that you could imagine that I've gone through. But when I look at this situation that we're in right now, just the shift in consciousness on how we relate to time, money, effort, contribution, humanity, it's already changed in so many positive ways. It's beautiful. And at the same time, yes, there are changes that are hard. Absolutely. There are changes that are hard. But my husband and I looked at it the other night and we said, okay, so he's laid off and we're grateful that our government has the CERB and that still cuts his income in half. And I'm blessed to work full time, but a lot of my clients need grace right now around paying. but I think we might be spending less than we've lost in income.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, I noticed that as well because we're like, I haven't driven my car.
One
Like,
tank of gas every 2 months.
right? I'm thinking I should take her out to kind of like just run the engine or something. But there's expenses that have come down, but there's some beautiful things, as you said, that have gone up. And I think, you know, what you're talking about is our willingness to be present to the beauty in change,
Yes.
right? And it's so key that if I focus over here, as you said, I won't miss the good stuff. I'll miss the good stuff. I'll miss the beauty. But there's so much beauty to focus on.
And when you said, Suzanne, you know, if it were perfect, why is this happening? And sometimes that's a term people have to consider when they're going through a very hard situation, be it grief and loss, be it cancer, and they're meant to have a new relationship with their health, be it heartbreak, because they were meant to have a new relationship with standards or self-love and love. And I think with COVID-19, if we were to consider if it were perfect, why is it happening? We were moving in our world at a pace that was so unsustainable and unhealthy for more than half of our population. In the beautiful country you and I live in and call home, by the age of 40, more than half of our population has battled depression, addiction, or anxiety. And we're not okay. The pace of having to work so much, to spend so much, to be busy so often, to have so little downtime, we've been given a dose of what we've requested, but we're drinking from the fire hose. You know,
Yeah.
everyone was wishing for a day off or a week off or just a little slow down or just a little break. So we got a really big break. So we can all recalibrate. We can relook at our priorities, what matters. But more than anything, this is forced consciousness, forced awareness, forced presence. We have 24 hours a day or 16 when you're awake to look your own self and your own chosen people that you live with in the eyes and readjust your relationship with all of them. That's a gift. Doesn't always feel that way, but that's a gift.
You know, it's so true because we're hearing some reality stuff that's happening for people. So we're, you know, there are couples that are going through challenges right now. And what's interesting is they're being asked, consciously or unconsciously, to face the things they haven't looked at about their relatedness, right?
Because I have a specialty in infidelity, I have a little chuckle going on, and that is that people who stray just can't during COVID-19 because you're not allowed to leave your house. And you can't see anybody else. Can't even hug your mother, so you can't hug another. So I'm having a good laugh about that one. But I've got to be honest with you. In my house, yes, there's also an honesty side when we talk about the data. Is the data? Of course, the struggle is for real. I have 3 young kids. I have a moody teenager. 2 have ADHD. One's got mental health and anger struggles. One's healing from a concussion. My husband's playing homeschool daddy and I'm hiding in the bedroom to work all day. So I'm not saying it's easy, but there's so much to be grateful for.
And you know, and this is the thing, because I think what happens when, I know for me, when change comes and it comes in a way that I didn't, because, you know, we're entrepreneurs, we like to control things. We like what we want, and we like it when we want it, and we like it how we want it, right? So when something shows up and I'm like, I didn't ask for this. Why is this here? And that's my first thing. And then I got to have my moment, and I got to stomp my feet, and then I got to catch myself and say, okay, Suzanne. And the one thing I remind myself is this is probably here because I've been in this place too long. And this place could be this mood, this unhappiness, this resignation of not liking something but doing it anyway, this job that I wanted to get rid of but wasn't willing to take the risk, this relationship that was struggling but we've been too busy to face it. Whatever it is, whenever something shows up, for me, it shows up to magnify some area.
Absolutely. And a funny example comes to my mind, Suzanne. For those of your viewers that have had childbirth, they'll understand automatically. But I want to do an example for your viewers who have never birthed a child, which might mean your male viewers as well. I want you to do something with me for just a second, because when we talk about suffering being optional and happiness may be a choice, let's look at it with physical pain. I want you to tense up your neck and your shoulders and imagine that you're in pain, and I want you to say, ow! Okay. Now I want you to, in your lowest, most grovelly, sexy voice, go, ah.
Oh.
Go ahead. Come on, Suzanne. In birth, when a baby is coming into the world, the most meaningful thing my doula ever taught me was how to move with the adversity and go, ah. And there was so much less actual pain than going, what most women do, ah, it all hurts more. And that is the same when the pain is not physical in the body, when it's around us. When we clench up, when we resist it, when we grit our teeth, when we try to do a grin and bear it, it actually hurts more. There's more to grin about. When we just trust it and surrender it and lean into it and know that on the other side of that pain, something beautiful will arrive. That I always think of childbirth. I mean, mine were long, 36 hours. I did home births for 2 of my babies. And let me tell you, the pain is real, but it was a lot better going, than to resist it.
And you know, it's the same thing when we tense up, we don't breathe either.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But this is such a great analogy, because, you know, when I'm in fear, or I'm in anxiety, or I'm in stress, and when I get crisis, one of the first thing I do to escalate someone, I go, look at me and breathe with me. Mm-hmm. And I would have to actually remind people to breathe. And the reason I'm using that analogy, just to, you know, piggyback on what you're saying, is that I had to remind them of, this is choose breath, choose breath, choose breath. Because when we get into these moments where things are swirling, we forget the choice of the simplest things.
And being led is the proof that there is a choice. We just don't all have the mastery around being self-led and self-started. See, every evening when I go to bed, I put on the most beautiful guided visualization. It's 23 minutes. It vibrates my soul. Every member of my family listens to it. And I challenge my friends to stay awake to the end. It's so peaceful and relaxing. It's a send-off. So I choose to let her voice lead me into a peaceful place. But I had to choose to turn it on. And that's where suffering is optional. When we're sad and want to stay sad, we watch sad movies that we know will make us cry. We listen to sad music that we know will make us cry. We eat food that we know will make us unwell. So when we want to stay sad, there's a whole lot we can do to continue the suffering, because we can't imagine anything else. But when we decide that the suffering's not for us anymore, and getting better or getting well or positive or joyful or happy is, there's little things we need to do about it. And there's a person at choice that's got to be committed about it. We either reach out for professional help, we call a friend who's a good lifeline, we decide to get out of our pajamas that day. Those are choices. It's not like happiness is a light bulb, but the desire to become happy is the light bulb. And then
you know, so walk us through. So let's say there's people listening and they're in a state of suffering.
Yeah.
And they're in a state of overwhelm. So they're listening to us and they're saying, okay, I hear you. I'm going to choose to look for the good in this.
Let's give the most simple self-coaching formula there is. It's 5 questions. 5 questions to write down to allow you to pull yourself out of where you're in and move over to where you'd like to be.
Okay, question so before you start question number 1, I'm going to say, so somebody listening, type these questions so that we get them, so that someone else who comes back will be, what are those questions? Let's get them in. All right, so question number 1 is.
So you're in the divot. You're not liking how it feels. Question number 1, how's it now? That's where you have permission to complain. Vent it like it really is. Don't try to be above it. Just get it off your chest. Question number 2, how would you rather it be? So if suffering, sad, hurting, angry, mad, whatever the state is now, whatever the situation is now, question 2 is how would you rather it be? Talk about it like you wish it were, not how it is anymore, how you wish it were. Question number 3, what can be done about it? Using your wise mind and your vast amount of internal knowledge and intuitive knowledge and the amazing people already around you, what are some of the things you already know could be done about this? Maybe it's to call someone, text someone, use Dr. Google, email Suzanne. You probably already know a long list of possible things. Question number 4, what are you willing to do about it? Whittle that list down, because the list matters not if you're not willing to venture into it.
Well, that's like underline that question, highlight, star that question, because that is such a key.
Number 5, the most important question of all ever in your life. What will you do about it, and who will you be about it in the next 24 hours? And so if we run that flow back, you're heartbroken. Your partner is no longer with you. You just got a cancer diagnosis. It's COVID-19. Whatever the situation is, my heart is with you for how it is affecting you. You have an opportunity to answer how it is for you now, how you would rather it be, what can be done about it to get you there, what of those things are you willing to do about it, and most importantly, what will you do about it, and who will you be about it? What's the intention about you, the words about you, the modus operandus, the way your friends would talk about you when you're not listening? What will you do, and who will you be about it in the next 24 hours? And the first step is not heroic, epic, or solving of anything. The first step is moving in the direction of progress. So it might just be one tiny thing. Because Suzanne, my belief to get out of the dark is that if we did 1%, one tiny tweak a day, 365% progress in a year. That's a whole lot of shift in not a lot of time.
Absolutely. And that is such a simple and useful formula. And I want to go back to the first thing you said, the first step, because I think the first step is so key to the next step. And you said, be where you are right now. And when you're saying be where you are, because oftentimes how people cope and their coping mechanism is to deny how I'm feeling.
Just rise above it and pretend it's all fine over here.
Right, I'm good, I'm fine, I'm this. So and what happens when that happens is emotion gets locked in here. Right? I tell everybody all the time, if I get mad, I get sad, I get frustrated, I'm gonna cry.
And then I need chocolate.
Right? I'm gonna cry, and I'm gonna cry like a baby. You'll be like, how old is this girl? I'm gonna cry. And I've been like that ever since I was little. But this is the interesting thing. I'm also the member of my family that gets so, like, I pass through things quickly because I have the emotional release.
It's like chickenpox. You have to have it in order to then not get it. And so if you never had the emotion, you don't get to get over it because you have to have it first. You have to be in it. And I don't know what it is about 5. Maybe it's because it's, all we can count on a hand. And of course, there's no nails because of COVID-19, right? So another great 5-step access out of suffering comes from a platform called Radical Forgiveness. I am so grateful that I got to become the last trained master coach in the world in Radical Forgiveness before Colin Tipping passed away this past year. And Radical Forgiveness gives us 5 steps. If you write down an acronym, tough cry. It's a little sloppy, but you go TFCRI. And to get through the suffering, T stands for tell the story. In the most victim-y, lay on the gravy thick, be right in it, messy kind of way, because you've got to. You've got to at least once get the story out.
Absolutely.
F stands for feel the feelings. So Suzanne, the fact that you're a beautiful crier, you got that skill.
Down.
C stands for collapse the story. I'm going to use something big here to collapse the story. I was attacked at the age of 17, very badly, which led to cervical cancer. When I think of my attacker, collapsing the story starts to look for what might have been so for the other party. I have to wonder what kind of childhood he had, what his state of executive functioning is, his mental health, his blood or alcohol relationship. I have to wonder what torturous things might have been done to him or seen by him that would allow him to become who he was. And that doesn't make my experience lighter, but it reminds me there were two victims in the story, and I got to get over my part. He may still be trapped in that mind. The R stands for reframing the story. That's where we start to speak good about the things that don't seem so good. We start to look for what's the beauty in the mess, what's the silver lining. And in my case, if you go through sexual trauma and live out the other side, you can help a whole lot of people to live well on the other side. And the last step, I, stands for integrating the news story. When you can tell the painful bit and the good news in one sentence, and it just becomes who you are. I'm a survivor of abuse and rape and depression, and it allows me to serve humanity because I know their pain and I can guide them out of it. Bad news, good news, one line, done. And then there's no suffering. There's nothing left to forgive if we can stand grateful right now for all that we've gone through, even the bits that were awful at the time.
You know, it's interesting because I teach speaking. That is a formula right there. That is the formula. And that's how we touch and inspire people is I started here, this happened. I went through this, and it's almost, I always tell people life tumbles out of control, down, you have your pity party, you tell your story, it's your right in victim, and then you make a choice. I'm gonna choose that there's something amazing about it. And you go through the same steps and you come out the other side as the messenger.
And then you don't wanna take that Mr. Clean magic eraser and undo any moment of the past, because I look at all of our past and I know COVID-19 will soon become a part of our past. I look at all of it like the stepping stones on our journey. And if we were to remove one, we fall in the pond. And so all of them are important. The good ones, the so-so ones, the seemingly awful ones, they're all essential to get us where we most want to go and most need to go. And so that's where suffering's optional. If you could all look at every moment in your life, and I know for those of you watching right now, there's a moment in your past that was awful at the time, where you can now look backwards at it and say, man, I'm so glad I had to go through that to get here. And the more of those moments in your life you can look backwards at and say, oh, in the rear view mirror, I'm actually glad I had to go through that, or be over him, or be over her, or get that cancer so I could finally get healthy and appreciate things again. That will give you the trust and confidence to look at what we're in right now, what the whole world's in right now, and say, this is going to be one of those things too.
Absolutely. And you know, it's the creation, right? And this is our collective sharpening the saw moment, if you will. This is our collective, you know, we are in this iron sharpen iron, and we can call on each other and sharpen each other's iron. And it is, you know, I know that, you know, I survivor of trauma and abuse myself, and knowing that the way I listen for people is a result of that, because I understand, there's a pain I understand, there's a fear I understand, there is a rising I understand. So that's the first thing. Like, no matter what happens, it tunes us in to certain things.
And you said so many special things there, Suzanne, but one of them is, because of that pain you understand and I understand, that's given us some magical fairy dust to be good at our craft. But the whole world didn't have it. And guess what? Thanks to COVID-19, the whole world, all the kids we've been complaining about that were entitled and didn't know suffering and didn't know gratitude and didn't know appreciation, well, everyone's going to get a little bit of this magical fairy dust right now, which is to know the pain, to appreciate the journey to get out of it, to appreciate the blessings, to start looking at the little things again and savoring them. It's never happened before. My grandmother tells me in her 92-year-old lifetime, she has survived depressions, multiple wars, but never has there been a trauma that the whole world experienced at the same time. So we can finally have this, and that part gives me goosebumps. We can finally have this common human thread of understanding, of connection. If you didn't believe the butterfly effect, you do believe the coronavirus sneeze effect. I mean, we really do cause a ripple.
And I think the other thing I want to highlight that you said is that, you know, this is happening in the entire world. And in this moment, this, if you go to the last thing that you said, and I really want to highlight, it's who am I going to be? Who am I willing to be in this? And the beingness is I call it the energy and attitude to which you engage in this process. Because I can decide that this is a lesson and it's a learn, and this was meant to make me better, but I can go into it with an attitude of not this is not fun, and I can resist the learn. Although I'm saying I'm open to the learn, I can be in resistance of the learn.
And there's a clue, and I'll give you a funny on how to see which one you are in your friend or family group. So I have two younger brothers. I love them both dearly. One of them sends out the daily news of who got murdered where, and where is the worst thing on the planet happened. Now, I send out the news that says, I just heard of this amazing natural method that's been working for some people, and it's really making a positive difference. Or did you hear that this city has reopened? So who you are about anything shows up in everything that you do. Are you the bearer of good news? Are you the one peeling back the curtain of the fog to say, hey, but there's hope? Or are you the one that is bringing more of the
Absolutely.
of the doom and gloom?
Absolutely. So part of what I really want to highlight at what you're saying is really we get to choose the energy to which we go on the new journey of growth, expansion, becoming more. And so it's who do I choose to be while I'm in it?
And suffering, when we look at that as a word, we assume it as something non-ideal. And you said iron. And in my mind, I've always pictured, Suzan, and this is why I love you so much. We share so many wavelengths. I've always pictured that trauma is like being the block of marble or stone or granite from which the statue of David was carved. And I picture if you are the stone, how it would have felt to have the carver's tools notching away at you, shaving away at you, polishing down. Every moment of that would have been excruciatingly painful if you weren't told in the beginning, dear block, you will become one of the most famous works of art of all time. The pain doesn't feel like suffering. It feels like purposeful and a necessary means to the end. If you know you're going to become the David, where it is suffering is when you assume there is no end in sight. You feel like the pain is random. You feel like it's there to break you, ruin you, cause you suffering. And so there's nothing different about how the chisel hits the block. It's whether the block believes it's going to become something great or whether the block believes it's there to be under attack. Nothing's different about the force of the artist's tool, but the experience of it is different.
Yes, because of the lens to which you're viewing it, right? And you know what's beautiful about what you're saying is the from a experiential place. We, you know, everybody talks about self-worth, self-esteem, all those things, right? And it's not out there, but out there shows up to help us build it. That's really how it occurs. So part of it is as the world shifts its circumstances, your self-worth, your belief in self, your resiliency, your I got this is created in the shift of mindset and the rise in the most adverse places. Because my self-worth and my belief in myself and my confidence in who I am and what I can manage in the world did not occur in my easy moments. It did not occur in the things that were just gifted to me and, ooh, I got lucky to get that. They actually occurred in moments like this, where I did not know what I was going to do, how I was going to survive, but I knew I was because I chose it. But I didn't have the how mapped out.
And
I
then
didn't
you
have,
shock yourself because you get on you get over that experience and you think, I just did that. Oh my gosh, I just did that. Imagine what else I can do. Imagine how many people I could help to go and do that, and tell them how scary it was, and then how actually easy it was, and it was nowhere near as bad as I thought it was going to be.
absolutely. And suddenly your internal self has expanded,
Yes.
right? Your concept of who you are and what you're capable of have expanded. And that's the beauty of it. But it goes back to how you started. You and I have to choose it. You and
And
I
you're
have,
a master, Suzanne, of not just mindset mastery and storytelling, but to me, you're a wellness diva, and you're a beacon of light and hope for people around health and wellness. So I know it's not the topic of today's conversation, but I think it's part of the theme that suffering, some of the suffering is optional. How we perceive a situation makes changes in our brain that instruct our nervous system and our cells to react, contract, and do different things. And so we actually make manifest of literal, physical, cellular suffering and degeneration in our body. So
mm-hmm.
we literally cause more suffering when we're in resistance to something, and we actually affect our physical health, as you know, and our mind instructs our body on how to be. And so if our mind thinks this is awful for me, well, then it shall be. And if our mind thinks that this is going to be good for me, then it will be. And so I think there's so much truth in the title you chose for today's talk. And some suffering is healthy because it gives us perspective, and it reminds us that, if life doesn't go up and down, it only goes this way when you're not in it anymore.
Well, and one of my favorite Jim Rohn's quotes is life happens in the middle.
Yeah.
And he reminds us that you need to know hot. So it may feel quite hot in the world right now to appreciate cold, right? You need to know high to understand low. And he says that if you think that life is always the high, then he goes, you're not living it to its capacity. If you think it's always the low, then you're not living it to its capacity. And life is meant to go like this, right? But our job is to bring ourselves back to middle, right?
I
And
think
that's
the most important thing, that if you have a viewer right now, if this is speaking to you because you are currently in a place of deep suffering that you feel is not your choice, you feel like life is coming as the steamroller and you are just under it. It's happening to you. It's not happening for you. It's not happening through you. If you're in that place right now, step one isn't be happy. Step one is call the one person who you know can best support you to get a little less suffering and a little spark of joy just today, and then just tomorrow, and then just the next day. It's just one thing. And there's that funny joke about the house and the man who drowned, and God sends a helicopter and a plane and a boat. We've all heard that story.
absolutely.
You gotta want a lifeline, or it won't be cast to your direction, and if it is, you won't see it. So the decision to get better has to start inside. Just has to.
And I think, such a great place to leave people is that you want to have the lifeline, and I think it's always baby steps. It's always baby steps. And it might be deciding to wake up tomorrow and say, I'm gonna get dressed tomorrow, right? And it might be, I'm gonna walk around with a smile. It is whatever it is. And when I used to do family work and I'd have people who have depression, I'd say the opposite of depression, because depression loves stagnation. It is when the body is stagnated, when energy is stagnated. It's like you've been here too long. I go, the one thing you can do is move. Right? It's the simplest thing. Move something. Do one thing. And take it one thing of movement at a time, one change at a time. Because, I know there's people watching who work with me and we're working on their health, and they'll say, well, how do I start working out? I go 5 push-ups, 5 sit-ups, 5 squats. And they're like,
And do a 5-minute miracle morning. But you
yeah,
said one thing, Suzanne, and I have to say, for your friends and network watching, one of the smartest things you could do just tonight or just tomorrow morning, if you can do one thing, if you're not already being mentored by Suzanne, if you're not already having her as your business leader, your business guide, she has a solution to allow you to pivot mentally through whatever's going on in your personal life. She also has a COVID-19 rescue boat right now that she wants to take 10 people on. And so if you are struggling for what your one thing is tomorrow, call Suzanne. And if you already did make that call and she's already your mentor and you're already on her rescue boat and the pain is in your marriage per se, I could be your one call. So you got two really good options on the line
absolutely.
with you right now.
Absolutely. So this is the piece. And Hailey, thank you so much for that. And first of all, the word today for everyone listening is mastermind, right? And this is my mastermind moment with a brilliant, brilliant mind, as you can see.
We're
And
sharing the wavelength.
so if you want to have a mastermind moment, put mastermind in the comment section. I'm gonna make sure you get a way to contact Hailey. We're giving away free mindset mastery moments, and that's 30 minutes with Suzanne, where we can mastermind about one thing. And it might be you're like, I was on that suffering is optional, and I want to know how it's optional. It can be optional in my life, right? And choose my beginning of my journey to happiness. One of the reasons I've been doing these lives and bringing these amazing people to you is because this might be your lifeline. This might be the person who you can spend 30 minutes with and say, I want happiness and resiliency, right? I related to many of the things you said. I want to know, just give me one thing. It might be that. That's why we're here. That's why we're having these conversations, because sometimes when you are in the darkest places and you're in the darkness and it feels like it, you need someone to be the flashlight, right? Just that little light.
I love that song, by the way. I'm a flashlight. I would say, Suzanne, for your beautiful viewers, if their struggle is around health or wealth, they need to dial and connect with Miss Suzanne Hart right over here. And if their struggle is around their heart, whether it is single and searching, or married and toxic, or not sure how to make things good again in the bedroom, those are the reasons to reach out to me, because while you're isolated with your person, you might as well make it extraordinary. I heard a rumor that there's going to be a round of babies after this called the coronials, but more than that, there's going to be a big round of divorces after this, and I'd like to help with both situations. So
there you go.
Health and wealth, call Suzanne. If it's for your love life, I'm here for you.
And it's interesting because this is all mindset, like what we have just had. And this is why I talk about, this is the mindset mastery time, because this is all mindset. And the beautiful thing about mindset, and why I love this work, and I know you love this work, is because mindset is our own choosing.
Yes, it is.
Right? It's once you get aware, you and I become aware of our thinking and how it impacts our emotions and how it impacts our communication and how it shows up in the world, in our behaviors, our actions, our ways of being. It all starts with the one conversation of shifting your thinking. And so what we're committed to is assisting people, over the next little while in shifting their thinking and feeling empowered. And if you listen to one of the lives I did before, I said we're being socialized to focus out there. We're inviting you to focus in here, to focus on the one place where you have power and you have choice, because the how you and I choose to respond is the one thing we always have control over. It may not feel like it, but
amen to that, Suzanne. My friend Tammy says, since we can't go outside, go inside.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Hailey, let everybody know your website, where they can learn more about you, where they can get those best-selling books.
Thank you, Suzanne. You're so kind. My friends, my fourth book came out recently. It's the one that's on my night table here because I make my poor husband read it with me and follow along because we got to practice what we preach. Um, Happy Love is available at yourhappylove.com. And my gift to you for being on this show is to choose any one of the 18 chapters. Tell me your favorite, and I will send it to you for free. Every chapter comes with how-tos on how to move your life, specifically in relationships, forward. It also comes with free worksheets and tools that you can use at home so you can self-coach while you're in self-isolation. So that's one gift. Is I would love to give you any chapter of your choosing in the book for free if relationships is the area for you. And second to that, if you need support around your happiness, support around love, I would love to gift you a 30-minute Zoom session. The benefit of us doing it that way is not only can we meet each other virtually, but I will send you the recording of your session so that you can play back the deep dive and you don't have to take fast and furious notes. You can be present in the learning, and then you'll have that to go over again and again.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to spend some time in supporting you because this is a time where some people's budgets are changing. Some people's stress level is changing, and the stress is going up while their budgets are going down. And that's why Suzanne makes these recordings available to you at no cost. And I make available to you these gifts. Suzanne makes her mastermind moments available. We want to see you win, but you do have to take the first step and say, yes, me. And the best way to contact me, Suzanne, is to actually send me a private and confidential text message. I'm kind of old school. I turn my phone off when I hang out with my kids and my husband. So you have my permission. You can post up the number for your group, and a text message will be read by me and only me, and you'll get a real human response.
I love it. I love it. Hailey, first of all, I could talk to you forever.
Likewise.
And I so appreciate your wisdom and just your fresh way of looking at it. And it's funny because we're always in sync. We, every time we pass each other in the room, it's like, I want to see you speak. But we're always both doing something.
Teaching. Well, I got to read you this little love note to you that you haven't received yet. Page 222. You are in the same chapter with one of my other favorite ladies, Lisa Nichols and Suzan Hart. Thank you for your hearts, your messages, your inspiring keynotes, and the bright lights that both of you are. When I hear either of you speak, my heart is completely lit up. And you're in there, like you're in print, Suzanne. And I put you, Lisa, and Oprah on the same page as people that just, you speak and the room stands still.
Thank you. Okay, so I appreciate the company. You must be like we're on the same brainwave. So yeah, because I've had dinner with Lisa, and I'm gonna have dinner with Oprah. So
I know you will. Maybe it'll be
You're putting it in flow. Hailey, thank you so much, everyone. I've been speaking to Hailey Patry. This is our Mindset Mastery call for Thursday. We'll be back here next Thursday. My guest is Mr. Ray East, and he's going to be talking about innovation. Oh yeah, he's going to be talking about innovation, and what do you do when you feel like I don't know what to do? How do you become innovative, right? So Hailey helped you adjust your thinking and start down a new path. And you might be on that path going, now what? Mr. Ray East is going to say, okay, let's talk innovation. So join us back here next week. Thank you so much for joining. Before I leave, I just want to read some of the comments. Hailey, you've been getting lots of love. Oh my goodness. So let me see what people are saying. Let's see. Colette says, you are the right person to do this call. This thing, right? Let's see. Decide the beginning and how you're going to graduate at the end. Big love there.
Could you imagine going through school your whole life, taking tests, doing homework, and it never being told that there's a graduation, a certificate, an access point at the end. Like, who would stick around for all that if we didn't know
That's
we could
so
graduate?
true, right? And yeah, just beautiful comments. And we'll go back and we'll respond to those. Hailey, thank you so much for joining us. And we're going to do this again. We're going to have to do this again.
Do it, my dear. Remember, my friends, tomorrow, if you need to do one thing to move your situation out of suffering and into happiness, call that beautiful lady named Suzan Hart, who is giving you this beautiful opportunity to share 2 hearts of wisdom in one session. And she is there for you. I am here for you. And I'm just going to leave you with a little bit of rose quartz love. One of the ways we choose to get out of suffering is to do all we can for our physical body, our emotional body, our spiritual body. And Suzan, I know you can give people the perfect A to Z complete path for their physical and emotional body. So your audience is so lucky to be in your beautiful hands. 30 years of moving people into the light for their lives. I'm so honored to be your friend and your guest, and I can't wait to see your show. I love you, and good night.
Oh, thank you so much. And we've been talking with Hailey Patry. Take care, everyone, and we will see you here next week.